How about that? It's been a year. Welcome back. Welcome back to our annual event. Welcome back, that is, if you've been working here longer than a year. If you haven't been, then welcome to the event formerly known as the Sales Kickoff. That ought to tell you how long I've worked here. When I first started working here, this was actually known as the Sales Kickoff. Guess the title was a little limiting. Some people felt excluded. So we changed it. It was then the Regional Kickoff, which again, we started inviting people not from our region and customers. So we changed the title again. I think the working title right now is the annual event for customers and employees and partners who are invited. I'm not done. To get together and kick off the new year. Kind of cumbersome, but I think it encapsulates the ideas of the event, sort of. I had a better idea. I actually came up with what I thought was a brilliant title to this event and sent it to Michael Esco. Apparently, Michael wasn't open to suggestions because my email came back and said, please remove me from this distro list. It's not a distro, it's an email. But to be honest, it was brilliant. And, I don't like to toot my own horn that often. Let me finish, that often. But this was truly brilliant when it comes to titles. It was succinct. It was one word. It was transferable, meaning if you heard it once, you would never forget it. And not only that, you're saying, wait, DR, there's more? Yes, there's more. It not only captured the sort of idea of what we go through every year, but the feeling as well, knowing that when you heard it, it would take you back instantly to sitting in that seat for a day and a half. Now, I might be biased because I came up with it, so I'll let you be the judge. I invite you to the 2011 PowerPoint-a-Palooza. You'll never forget that, ever. So we get done last year sitting through that day and a half, and I went up to one of the individuals working this, and I said, just out of curiosity, how many slides did we see in the last day and a half? Are you ready for this? 462. I know what you're thinking. It felt like more. It felt like more. You're right, it did. It did feel like more. Now listen, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with PowerPoints. I'm all about PowerPoints. I'm using one right now, right? I'm all about PowerPoints. I'm just saying this, 462? Like maybe we could get a message across a better way. Maybe. But here's my question. 462 slides, I'll ask you right now. How many do you remember? That felt a little convicting, didn't it? How many do you remember? And okay, and I know what you're saying, DR, that was a year ago. That's a lot to remember. There's a lot going on. True. But think about every PowerPoint presentation you've seen from then until now. How many PowerPoints do you remember? Now, I'm not saying that the presentations last year weren't memorable. There were many that were absolutely memorable. I'm just saying it's usually not the PowerPoints that are memorable, right? I mean, if the power of your point is not bigger than your PowerPoint, it is instantly forgettable. I digress. I mean, think about it. Last year, it was a year ago, and I bet if we went around the room and said, what are the things you remember from last year's kickoff? I bet you that there'd be a lot of repeats. We would remember a lot of the same things, right? I remember Michael Esco's montage of glamour shots. I mean, do you remember that? I remember that the last one he showed was of Elmer Fudd. I appreciate that he's able to make fun of himself. I remember Diana coming to the stage and talking about how her nephew was having trouble and needed a little help with extra credit. So she brought Flat Stanley to the stage. And she used that as a segue for her whole theme of that being everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten. I remember Danielle coming to the stage, and I actually remember his PowerPoints because they didn't have any bullet points on them. They were pictures. And one of them was a keyhole with a giant eye looking through it. And he challenged us to be curious. The next one was a picture of Charlie Chaplin sitting amongst all those gears. And he said, figure out how things work. A more effective picture might have been one of us sitting in front of the pricing portal, but but honestly, no one knows how that works. Things to do in sales kickoff speech: make fun of pricing portal. Check. I remember Phil Saylor coming to the stage with his German counterpart. And remember they showed that video, and it was the German guy getting that Mayday call from the American who said, we're sinking, we're sinking. Do you remember what the German guy said? What are you sinking about? That was a year ago, and we remember that. I remember Mark Benoit coming to the stage because he was wearing one of those silly Cirque du Soleil hats, and he was carrying a bucket because he was sick. Do you remember that? That was a year ago. I remember Greg DeMarco, Michael Kelly, and CK coming to the stage, and they played the song, We Are the Three Best Friends That Anyone's Ever Had, from the Rugrats. You remember that? This year, Greg will be coming to the stage to U2's One. For those of you not in on that joke, Michael Kelly and CK no longer work for the company. So Greg is alone. Again. Naturally. I remember Jim Macharola coming to the stage, and I remember his whole theme, right? Do you remember it? We're going to shock the world. And he showed the pictures of Muhammad Ali. I mean, he called his shot, so it should be no surprise when he gets up here and tells us about the success that they had, because he called it last year. I remember all of those things, and all of those things were a year ago. But at the basis of things we remember, I think we have to realize they're not PowerPoints. They're people and their passions, meaning that every single one of us is going to be remembered for something. A number of years ago, Danielle Kaplan was the CEO of Orange Business Services. Actually, Equant, but roll with me here. And we had just moved into this new office in Oak Hill. And he came to visit, and they had picked a number of individuals from different departments to be able to sit down with the CEO of the global organization and just have an open and honest discussion. Now, I'm pretty sure there are about 1,000 other things that Daniel Kaplan could have been doing at that time than sitting down and meeting with a bunch of us. But he went out of his way to come into this room, and they had picked about, again, 10 to 12 of us. I guess there were a lot of people on vacation, but I got chosen to sort of sit in this room. And he comes in, and he sits down, and he asks us to introduce ourselves in the department we're in, and we go around this room, and he comes back, and he starts introducing himself. I'm pretty sure we know who you are, right? And I'm the CEO. I'm like, hold on, what's your CEO? Sorry, I had project management. Sorry, let me cross that out. Like, yeah, we all know who you are. But he starts really engaging us on this level of just being open and honest, like, hey, tell me, what are some things we can do to help you be more successful? What are some roadblocks you're facing right now? And as this meeting went on, it got more open and more honest, and he would he was as inviting to criticism as he was to compliments. Except for this one woman who's sitting in the corner, and she has her arms crossed, and she's got this look at him like, I'm not buying into any of this. So after a while, he realizes that she's not engaged in this, so he says, what about you? And she looks at him and says, do you want me to be honest? And I remember thinking, that's kind of odd. Does she really think she has a bit of information that somehow is going to upset the CEO of this global organization? But being gracious, he looks at her and says, yeah, I'm a big boy. I can handle it. She said, it's very noisy around my cube. I am not kidding. And many of you are saying, well, what in the world did Danielle say back? I wish I knew, because it was all I could do not to turn the table over and be like, do you realize what's going on here? You will never get another opportunity this big in your entire career, and you are throwing it out the window because you can't get past yourself. It blew my mind, and as you can probably tell, I've thought a lot about that meeting over the years. And I've come to this conclusion. We will be one of those two people. We will either be the individual who is so consumed with our own agenda and our own goals that we will sabotage every opportunity we get. Or we will be the individual who will go out of their way for the betterment of our organization. See, our whole theme, united to win, you can't be united with other people when your only concern is your own agenda. You can't be united with other people when your only concern are your own goals. To be united with other people, you need to put all of that aside. And the first thing in your mind needs to be, what can I do to help this organization succeed? So here's the question. How will you be remembered for 2011? When 2011 comes to an end, how will you be remembered? Will you be remembered as someone that sabotaged every opportunity because it didn't match up or line up with your goals and agenda? Or will you be remembered as someone who is willing to roll up their sleeves and do whatever it takes to better this organization's chances of being successful? The great news is we get to choose. We get to choose. In every day and every way, we get to choose. Let us all decide right now that we will be the individuals who will go for something bigger than ourselves. And in doing so, make 2011 truly a year to remember. I appreciate the time you have given me. Let the palooza begin. Have a great week.